It's a joy to be here this morning. I know we have a lot of visitors, and we're so happy that you're here. This morning is going to be a little special kind of a service because we as the Puyallup Seventh-day Adventist Church have a tremendous project out before us that we have to complete. So this morning we're going to talk a little about that in the most spiritual way that we possibly can. So we're glad the visitors are here. If you feel inclined and you see something you want to help with, you just go ahead and help us. We're going to make you part of the family. My kids are going to laugh about this because I was able to tell it the first service with nobody knowing it because they hadn't heard it. But all my kids have heard this little story, and they love to say, "Heard it, Dad." But this story is part of the title of the service this morning, "Which Side Are You On?" A man and his wife were invited to a masquerade party. The man didn't know what he wanted to go as, but he decided he'd go as Lucifer. So he dressed himself up like Lucifer. You know how we know with the tail, the long tail, and the pitchfork, and the horns. That's the way we think about it. As he got dressed, he realized he couldn't drive because the tail was in the way. He couldn't sit down. So he said, "Well, it's only a little ways across town. We'll walk." So he headed over towards the party with his wife. But you know what happened? It started pouring down rain, and he was getting wet. And he noticed on the left side there was a little building. There was a little church, and it only had a little bit of a foyer out there with a little bit of a cover over it. Dan hadn't got there to put a new awning on it yet. It was just an old wooden one. And he jumped up on there with his wife, tried to keep dry. That was a sort of a charismatic church, and they were having a little revival service right then. And the preacher said, "If you don't look out and mind your ways and start changing things around here, old Lucifer's going to come in that back door and grab you." And just then the boy was getting wet, and he opened the door and walked in. Everybody turned around to see what the noise was, and here stood Lucifer. And I want to tell you, talk about a moving church. They headed out the front door anywhere except that back door. And they all got out except one precious little lady right down in the front. Her dress caught on the pew. She couldn't get out. And guy didn't know what was going on, so he walked down front to talk to her. And as he got down there, he looked down at her, and she looked up, and she said, "Oh, Mr. Lucifer, I've been a member of this church for 30 years now, but I've been on your side all the time." Which side are you on? Abraham Lincoln was on his way to Gettysburg on a train. He had been asked to make a speech, and a short one. And he was worried because he knew one of the greatest orators of the time was going to be presenting a message before him. And he worried about it. And as he got on the platform and he listened, 2 hours went by. When it was done, the man had done an unbelievable job of speaking. And he got the standing ovation. I think it was over 2 minutes long, longer than Lincoln's speech. Lincoln was more nervous, but he got up and he spoke. And as you and I both know, that it was one of the shortest but most memorable speeches of all times, known as the Gettysburg Address. I think it would be profitable for us to take note of a few phrases in his address this morning. I think it would be apropos for what we're trying to do down here in the Puyallup Valley. Lincoln's address talked a little about history. 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation. We can say approximately 65 years ago, our fathers and mothers brought forth upon this valley a lighthouse with the intent of proclaiming the three angels' messages and the soon coming of Jesus to the entire area. Lincoln goes on, "Now we're engaged in a great war to test whether a nation so conceived in liberty and freedom can long endure. We at the Puyallup Church are engaged in a great war ourselves. Sometimes it's an uphill battle to proclaim the message of truth in this valley. Lincoln says we have come to dedicate a portion of that field to those who gave their lives that this nation might live. We're about to build and dedicate a worship, education, evangelistic outreach center on Shaw Road, maybe as a final battlefield for the war against the evil one. Abraham Lincoln goes on to say, the world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but the battlefield would stand as a testament of what was done here by those who fought the battle. I would like to say with a surety that no one will long remember what I say this morning. But when we as a church gather our arms around this project and complete it, it will stand as an outreach center till the Lord comes and many souls will be in the kingdom of heaven, because we as a church, each one of us, in our own way, put our arms around this monumental project and finished it. It won't be easy, but God has a plan, and we're the ones that are going to complete that plan here in the Puyallup Valley. Our church founders in Puyallup started our church over 100 years ago. And shortly after that, they realized the need of a church school. And I am so thankful that they realized that, because, you know, our young people are the most precious commodity that we have. And what they're teaching in some of the public schools nowadays should not be taught to young people. So we need a school system. And that's why they founded it over 100 years ago. Where that first school was, I don't know. I haven't a clue. It was in somebody's house, I think. But the second church school was in the basement of the little church down on Pioneer that is gone now, but it's right across from the Lutheran church. And if you look up here, you'll see a picture of it right there. That's where our second church school was, in the basement of that church. How many students they had, I don't know. That was before my time, believe it or not. The third school was built down on Linden Drive, which is East Main, Linden Drive. It's right across from the bowling alley, Bunce's Rental, right across from there. And that school is quite precious to me, because that's when I came on the scene. And if you look up here, if you don't know where that is, right there the building is. It still stands, and I was told by Betty Miller that that little building right in the back there is like a Quonset hut, and that was their gymnasium. And Betty told me that that was part of a work shack at the first Narrows Bridge that was built, and they donated it, and our people went down and brought it down and used it for a gymnasium. That was Linden Drive Church School. And then around 1961-62, Nelson Crane was put on Shaw Road, and that's the one we're familiar with. Most of you don't know who Nelson Crane is, and they've asked that question. I might as well tell you. Clyde Nelson owned berry fields down in the valley here. I picked berries for him. Several of them in here probably did, but most everybody's younger than me now, so maybe not. But I know Sister Havens knows all about Clyde Nelson, and there's Betty right there. Clyde Nelson was also a plumber, and he did the plumbing for all the plumbing down there at Nelson Crane. And sometimes the way the plumbing works, he wouldn't brag about it now. But it's okay. It was done, it was paid for, and it served its purpose. Llewellyn, pardon? Somebody said, praise God. I thought somebody said something that I didn't know about. Llewellyn Crane, I remember her coming to teach down on that little school where I was, down there on Linden Drive. Her dad would bring her down in an old Franklin car, and that was an air-cooled car. It did not have it had an air-cooled engine in it. And I remember her coming down, and she taught for who knows how many years. But she even taught when she was retired. She came back and taught down at Nelson Crane for a while. In fact, I think she was one of Doug's teachers, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Dean's too. But that's why they named it Nelson Crane, after those two people. So now you know. Soon after they built that school, I'm not sure what our enrollment was the first year or two, but I know it's been up around 100 for the last few years, and I'm so thrilled to be able to have a school where we can put 100 young people in. Soon we'll have a new worship center, and the school will be known as Northwest Christian School. We'll get used to that. We'll forget all about Nelson Crane here in another 40 years probably. And we'll remember Northwest Christian School. And I hope this is just a little thing on the side here. I hope that underneath it says Northwest Christian School affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Let me take you back for a minute to that school on Linden Drive. That is a very precious school to me, and I'll tell you why. Because in 1948, my mother, we'd been going to the Pentecostal church in Ording, and I'll tell you, we learned some wonderful things there. And then we went to the Christian church in Ording. And it became very precious to me. That's where I learned about young people's meetings, Saturday night meetings. I love to go to those because they always had cookies, and they fit well. They had cinnamon rolls, Dean, with raisins in them, by the way. Dean hates raisins, so he didn't mention anything about bringing raisins in the cinnamon rolls. But my mother had got a little pamphlet in the mail. Somebody had given it to her, and it talked about the Sabbath. And we found they had a little Seventh-day Adventist church in Ording. We went to a series of meetings. Elder Stamen and Elder Ziegler presented those meetings. And we were baptized into that Seventh-day Adventist church in Ording. They didn't have a baptistry. We were baptized out in the old South Tacoma church. And my mother said, you need to go to church school, to my brother and I. And I, what's church school? What is that? And we go on the weekends. That's church school. No, we've got a church. They've got a church school in Puyallup. In some way, we got to get you there. I like that kind of attitude. Some way, we've got to get you there. We lived in Ording, up on Crocker Hill, 7 miles east of Ording. We had to come down all the way. My dad worked in Tacoma, and he'd take us boys in the back of that old 36 Chevrolet. Why my dad had a 36 Chevrolet coupe with 3 kids, I'm not sure. But we rode in the back of that thing in the rumble seat to church school many mornings, cold. But he took us down there about 7 o'clock, and school started around 9. And how we made it through the year with 2 hours every morning running around Puyallup, I will never know. But we did it. We made it. And we graduated that year, and I'll tell you where they had the graduation. They had it in this church right here. 8th grade graduation in 1950. And we graduated. My brother was a valedictorian, and I was a salutatorian. Of course, there was only 2 of us in the class. Abraham Lincoln goes on to say that I've already said that. I'm not here this morning to preach a sermon. I'm here because night after night, for the last 6 to 8 months, I've woken up in the middle of the night, and I'm not exaggerating, and I toss and I turn, and I say to myself, how are we going to get this project done? How are we going to possibly get that project done down there? How can we do it? And I start to pray, and I say, Lord Jesus, how are we going to raise $4 to $5 million above and beyond what we have? How that's going to happen? That's what is needed to complete the job. We hear all kinds of figures. The reason we don't know for sure is because we haven't got the bottom line figures yet. It's going to be hard to complete that, I always say. The thought would go through my mind hour after hour. Sometimes I'd stay awake for 3 to 4 hours. Have any of you done that? Woke up in the middle of the night and worried about our school down there, how it's going to get completed. I see the hands out there. I appreciate that. I hope when I get through this morning, every single one of you will wake up in the middle of the night and pray to the Lord to help us to do what you want us to do to finish that project, because we've got to get behind it. We've got to get our arms around it. It's time that we make that decision that we're going to circle this, and we're going to circle the wagons and finish the job. One night I got to thinking, how are we going to finish this? And all of a sudden, the thought came to me, the children of Israel and the task that they had to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. And they got it done finally. We finally got that done. In your mind's eye, let me take you back, if I could, to a short time after the exile of the Jews to Babylon is over. Go back with me to the book of Haggai and Zechariah. In my study Bible here, and I love this study Bible, this is a new King James Version. If any of you have it, you will know that at the beginning of each book in the Bible, the author has written a synopsis of what is in each book of the Bible, and I love that. And they've done a lot of study because it's accurate as can be. Every single time I read it is accurate. And I want to share with you what he said about Haggai, and it seems like they're written right for us. But let me share this with you. If you have a New King James Version, you'll find it in there. With the Babylonian exile in the past and a newly returned group of Jews back in the land, the work of rebuilding the temple can begin. However, 16 years after the process has begun, and you know how long it's been since we've been talking about a new church and new school? Over almost 20 years, since Elder Paulsen was here. We sort of researched it at that time. 16 years had passed here. The people have yet to finish the project, for their personal affairs have interfered with God's business. Did you hear that? their personal affairs that interfered with God's business. Haggai preached a fiery series of sermonettes designed to stir up the nation to finish the temple. He calls the builders to renewed courage in the Lord, renewed holiness of life, and renewed faith in God who controls the future. Did you see that? The renewal that he's called for? We need to call for that same renewal here. We need to do that. Now I'm going to turn just one page because there's only 2 chapters in Haggai. He was a man of few words. Zechariah had a few more chapters. Zechariah, the book, what's written before this book begins, says, for a dozen years or more, the task of rebuilding the temple has been half completed. Zechariah is commissioned by God to encourage the people in their unfinished responsibilities. Rather than exhorting them to action with strong words or rebuke, did you see the difference? It said that Haggai had preached some strong sermonettes to encourage them. Zechariah approached it differently. He did it a little more softly. Zechariah seeks to encourage them to action by reminding them of the future importance of the temple. The temple must be built, for one day the Messiah's glory will inhabit it. The future blessings is contingent upon present obedience. The future blessings is contingent upon present obedience. The people are not merely building a building, they are building the future. With that as their motivation, they can enter into the building project with wholehearted zeal, for the Messiah is coming. Now, they were talking about the first coming of the Messiah, but we know that Jesus is coming again the second time. In all of his glory, he's coming again. Then you say, why do we need to build a $3 or $4 or $5, $6, $7 million project? Because the Lord himself said to occupy till I come. Continue in the work until I come. So we have to keep going forward and doing what the Lord wants us to do. My friends, there's a job to do, and I know that the regular church and school business has to go on. I know that. I know that. I know our evangelism and our outreach and our Bible studies and every other aspect of our lives has to continue. I know that. But as a church, we need to push this task of fundraising for our new school and church outreach center to the forefront of our thinking. We must do that. We must put this as the #1 priority for the next couple, 3, 4 years. But as a church, we need to push it to the forefront so that we can finish this task. Each one of us must wrap our arms around this project and finish it. We must press together, press together, press together. As we do this, let us remember the only thing that we have to fear is to forget how the Lord has what? Led us in the past. And believe me, he has led us in the past, and we're going forward. Let's look at a few texts in Haggai and Zechariah. I just want to read a few texts here, and I'm going to read them as quick as I can, so if you want to follow, you can try. I'm going to give them to you, Haggai 1, 2 to 11, then 13, and part of 14, and then Haggai 2, part of 4 and 5. These are some powerful texts, and as you listen to them, the Lord is sort of taking us to task a little bit, because the people had a different idea than the Lord did. Verse 2 in chapter 1 of Haggai, thus spake the Lord of hosts, saying, this people says the time has not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built. It has not come. Then the word of the Lord came to Haggai the prophet, saying, is it time for you yourself to dwell in paneled houses? And the temple is in ruins? What's he saying there to us? We have houses that we live in that are nice. And yet what we have for a church school down there, you can throw a baseball through the wall. The Lord's house needs to be finished. This is a nice looking building that we're in here. We're lucky we sold it, because there are problems in this building that would cost, if we did it right, hundreds of thousands of dollars to complete it. So it's time to move on, and the Lord has a plan for us. Listen to this. The Lord said here in verse 3, consider your ways. He said, I'm going to tell you why you got problems. Listen to this. You have sown much, but you bring in little. Did you hear that? Did you know that only about 35% of our people pay tithe? I don't know who does or don't, so I can say that. But only about 35% do. And the same amount pays church expense. You sow much, and you bring in little. You eat, but never enough. You know, you never have enough to eat. You go out to eat and then you come home and have a sandwich. You know, you never have enough to eat. You drink and you never are filled with drink. You clothe yourself and no one is warm. And he who earns wages, listen to this, he who earns wages to put in a bag with holes in it. The Lord's really chastising the people. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Go up to the mountains and bring wood and build the temple, that I may take pleasure in it and be glorified, saith the Lord. You look for much, but indeed it comes to little. And when you brought it home, I blew it away. Do you see what he's saying there? You know, he promises in Malachi to give you a blessing far beyond you have any knowledge of. But he's also saying here, hey, if you don't do what I ask you to do, what you do have is going to just evaporate like smoke. He said, I blew it away. Therefore the heavens above you withheld their dew, and the earth withholds its fruit. You never have enough. For I called for a drought in the lands and the mountains, and on the grain and the new wine and the oil, and whatever the ground brings forth, on men and livestock and all the labors of your hand. He said, all of that is gone. You get it, you earn it, it's gone. You live from paycheck to paycheck and never know where it goes. And he said the reason for that is because you don't do what I ask you to do. People, it's time to start doing what the Lord asks us to do. If we all did what he asked us to do, we wouldn't have to ask for a penny. Do you know that? It's the truth. Absolute truth. I'm not angry at anybody. I just know we have a job to do and we have to go forward. My wife says sometimes when you talk, people think you're mad. Verse 13, then Haggai, the Lord's messenger, spoke the Lord's message to the people, saying, I am with you, saith the Lord. These two verses have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in them. Look for them. Saith the Lord. 14, so the Lord stirred up the Spirit. On down further, it says the spirit of the remnant, the spirit of all, the remnant of the people. The remnant, what is the remnant? What is the remnant? Do we know as a remnant? What's left? It's the last day church. He stirred up the remnant of the people, and they came and worked on the house of the Lord of hosts, their God. Did you see the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in there? All three of them. Okay, let's go down to verse 4 of chapter 2. Yet now the strong, I like this. The Lord now says, listen, if you do what I ask you to do, I'm going to be with you. But he says this 3 times in here. He said, now, be strong. Go down a little bit further. Be strong, Joshua, son of I wasn't going to say this because I can't pronounce it, but Jehozadak, the high priest. And be strong. 3 times he says that. All you people of the land, saith the Lord. And work, for I'm with you. He says, work, I'm with you, saith the Lord of hosts. Now, we ask, where's the money coming from? This is good and dandy, but where's the money coming from? Read it from verse 6 through 9. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, once more, it is a little while, I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry lands. What do you think he's talking about? He said he blew everything away before when you weren't doing what he asked you to do. Now he's going to shake the heavens and the earth. What is he going to shake out of the heavens and the earth? The funds that are needed to pay for that building down there. That's what it is. He's going to shake the heavens and the earth and the dry land. And I will shake all the nations. I like that because we are a little timid to ask other people to help us with this outreach center. He's going to shake the nations. And they shall come to the desire of all nations, and I will fill this temple with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. Listen to this next verse. The silver is mine, and the gold is mine, saith the Lord of hosts. The glory of this latter temple shall be greater than the former, saith the Lord of hosts, and in its place I will give peace, saith the Lord of hosts. Out of Zechariah, I have not read the Clear Word Bible at all. Carol has one and she studied it and loves it. She shared 2 verses with me out of Zechariah. 4:7 and 4:10. This is how the Clear Word, so it's a little different than it reads in yours. All the things his people are worried about will disappear as they push ahead with their work. Do you like that? That's pretty clear. And then in 4:10 it says, don't look down on small beginnings. You know, some people have looked down and said, what's going on? All I see is a little dirt. All I see is a little dirt. When are we going to start building? When are we going to start building? Don't look down on small beginnings and become discouraged over the little progress that you're making. The Lord is wonderful. Dear friends, I dare say that this time We've had things before that we've had to conquer in this church. But this time the Lord has given us a mountain. A mountain that looks like it's too big to climb. But you know what? The children of Israel and Moses, when they came out of Egypt with all their belongings and all that stuff, and they got to the Red Sea, and the Lord said to cross it, I'll bet you it looked like a mountain to them. And what happened? Moses, when did it part? When did the water part? When they know. I used to say that. That's the Jordan River. Somebody corrected me. When Moses reached down with his rod and touched it, and the water parted, the mountain was no longer there. We as a church must reach out and touch this mountain of a project, and the Lord will open up opportunities for us, and we can finish this project debt-free. Did you hear that? Debt-free. I believe it. I believe it because the Lord will do it. This morning I have a few ways that I want to share with you that will help us as a church body to wrap our arms around this project and to get it completed. Nicola, is Nicola here today? Nicola, I'm sorry. I pronounce it every which way, and I guess everybody. Nicola was going to try to make it, but I don't see her. Is she there? Where's she at? Don't see her. But she was going to try to make it anyway. But she has a, very shortly she will, with a lot of help from some of us, will be contacting each family in the church to share with you her plans of how each family can help with the major fundraising. What I'm talking about this morning is not the major fundraising. I want you to know that. You can't say this morning that I'll do one little item and get off the hook. You can't do that, because this morning what I'm trying to do is get everybody just to wrap their arms around this project. What I'm going to present this morning is just some fun things that basically have been done in the past and has been discontinued. And frankly, I think it will be fun to reintroduce them so each of us can get involved in weekly fundraising for God's Evangelistic Center and Northwest Christian School. Now, in good fundraising, we have to do a little something that we don't like to do. We have to get out of our box. Each one of us are in a box, a small box, and we have to get out of that box. So I'm going to give you 3 things that takes us a little bit out of the box. The first one is the birthday thank offering. For years, we took a birthday thank offering in this church. It went for a different project, but we haven't done it for a while. So I want to reintroduce the birthday thank offering. And last week we sort of did it just on a trial basis because it was Thanksgiving. And you see this little basket right here. This little basket is going to be on a podium or somewhere up here at the last Sabbath of every month. And if you've had a birthday that month, you might want to bring an offering forward and put in there and thank the Lord for another year. Or if you've had something that has really been happened to you that was fantastic that month, and you're especially thankful for something, or you're just thankful to be alive, you want to come up and give an offering. We're going to take that offering during the second song that the praise team is singing, and it'll be on the last Sabbath of every month. Wendell is going to be here normally on that Sabbath, and he will mention it. Now's the time to bring your birthday thank offering forward for the building fund. And that basket will be over here. Now, last week we did that. And Judah, does anybody know in here how much money we got that last week for the building fund? For that one little offering. You remember it? $2,525. Was that good? Amazing. We're going to do that every week. If some of these things don't work, we'll stop and try something new. We just have to keep plugging. The second thing, you know our little church offering down here? Every Sabbath we have a little church offering. The kids tell us, get the story. All that funds goes to the building fund. Every week that amounts between $150 and $250. I want to challenge you people. For 52 weeks, that's 1 year, someone in here will take each week and try to match that little church offering. And we'll tell you every Sabbath what that church offering is from the last Sabbath. In other words, this week's offering, next week someone should try to match it. We'll do that every week for 52 weeks and see how it happens. We might change it. Might not work. How many would be willing in here to take one Sabbath, and try to match it? If you don't match it, maybe you have to give the rest, or if you don't match it, it's fine. Just at least try to. Raise your hands high. Raise them high. Okay, here's what I need you to do. After the church service, my wife will be out there, and there's a little pad. She's going to write your name down. You can choose which week you want. All the Sabbaths are written down. You can put your name in if you want it in June, July, or August, or September. You want to wait. You want to do it right away, you do it. But make sure you get your name down, because we need to cover those. And we may mention it again that we need some extras, because I'm going to try to get that covered every week for 52 weeks, and I'd hate to do it every week myself. But this Sabbath is covered. This Sabbath is covered because last week we had $161.95 come in that little church. And so I decided to take that myself. I'm going to take that, and I'm doing it for a reason. I'm going to show you how this is done. You don't have to do that yourself. Be bold about it. Go home and talk to your mothers and your dads, your aunts and uncles, your brothers and sisters, your neighbors. Tell them about the outreach center that we're going to be building down there, the church school, the church. We're going to be a community center. There's going to be programs down there that will affect the entire community, cooking schools and all that type of thing. So don't be bold when you reach out and ask people to help you. If you get enough people, you don't have to put any of in that $165 or $70, $180 yourself. So all those that raised your hand, make sure you go out and sign up. If some of you think about it and you want to pick a date, go out and sign up. Make sure you don't get out of here before you sign up, so I can know how many people are doing this. Now here's what we're going to do today. I'm taking this, so I'm responsible for $162. What I want to ask you this. Is there anybody out there that wants to help me take care of my wound? How many will give me $20? See these hands? You come out and sign up with Carol. Go up and say you did it. There's several there. How many 20s do you have? How many 10? There, there's 3, 4, 5 of them. How many give me $10? There's a $10. I like that. $10. Go out and sign up with Carol on that at the end of the program. How about 5 of them? You need 5? You need 5? Okay. The ones that said they would do it, sign it up, and I'll raise the rest of them. Now, I've taken care of my week because I had about $40 or $50 come in on the first service. Make sure you sign up out there because I need your help. Hey. Some people are going to take a look and see who signed up for what week, and they're going to flood that basket. When Dan has his week, we're going to get $1,000 in that basket. Bring it on. Okay, now one more project. The old investment project. You remember the old investment project? We want to start that again. You know, investment used to bring in thousands of dollars. For projects, mission projects, everything that we bring in. This money isn't used for anything except outreach. That's all it was used for. But now we need to build our building. And so if we start this new investment project, maybe we can bring in quite a bit of money to help with this project. And now you know what you can do on these investment projects? You can grow a garden in the spring. When the produce comes due, put a little note in the bulletin. I've got corn, I've got carrots, I've got whatever. And I'll buy it from you. Because we eat lots of that stuff. All of us do. And we can help each other with these projects. You have car washes. Maybe somebody will want to have a car wash. A Sabbath school class can take on an investment project. Small groups, the classes down at school, take on these projects and help raise these funds for investment. What you do is you take $100 or so and you invest it and see how much more you get back for it. Maybe you want to donate the $100. And this morning I'm going to do something special. How many like that investment idea? You got to start thinking on your own on this because I can't implement it all. But what I did this morning, I decided I was going to give an extra $1,000 for the building fund. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it different. I've only got 8 left because I gave away 2. That's all I would allow for the first service. I've got 8 $100 bills here. And what I want to do is give these to whoever wants to take $100 and for 6 months invest it in something. I don't care what you do with it as long as it's legal. But you remember what the Bible said? You don't bury it in the ground. You invest it in something and pray about it and see what the Lord will do. He may triple it for you. He may 10 times it. Who knows? But then in May, when we look at it, I want to see if we don't have $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000 that we can do this again. Give it out again and have people in December bring back with, yeah, it multiplies pretty quick. So let me see, is there 8 people here that would want to take a $100 bill and see what they can do with it for 6 months? Yeah, so illegal stuff, no gambling. Well, okay, but not, I didn't know anything about gambling, Dan. Dan, I didn't know anything about gambling. You want $100? Okay, is there 8 people? Let me see if there's 8 people. Okay, let me see how many. Okay, what you need to do, I think we got our 8. You need to go out again and talk to Carol. She'll write your name down and give you $100 right on the spot, and you take it and pray about it, and the Lord will bless you as you try to take care of my investment project for me. This is my investment. I had an advantage over you. Okay, that's my 3 suggestions, but you know what? There's many more suggestions, and I want you to be praying about it and thinking about it. If you come up with an idea, you take it to the church board so you can get approval, and then implement it yourself. Tell us what it is. I'll be glad to give you suggestions. I can't implement it. You've got to implement it yourself. Okay? I want you to do that. Now, there's one project that I wish somebody would take on this year. Some 2 or 3 couples. And that's the old in-gathering. You remember the old in-gathering? Go out caroling. Here it is Christmas time. You go out 2 or 3 nights caroling with the young people, the kids. We used to take the youth out, and we'd bring in more money than anybody else in the church because we divided up into 3 groups. And I was leading one of those groups. And we sang every single time we sang the same song because it was the only song I could sing. Oh, come all you faithful. And I could sing it right now without missing a note, but I'm not going to. Somebody take that on. Think about that. And as you think about these projects and you go forward with the Lord, He's going to bless and we're going to get this job done. Years ago, Nancy wrote a song. Nancy wrote a song, and I claimed it as my song. She sang it for me, and she knew I'd like it. And it's become my theme song because I go off half-cocked half the time. And sometimes I get ahead of the Lord. I do things that He doesn't want me to do, and I try things that don't work. So I've claimed this song as my song, and it's called If You Can Use Me, Lord. It's If You Can Use Me, Lord, I'm yours today, now and forever, in whatever way. If there's a work that you would have me do, I'm ready, Jesus, to be used of you. Would that be each one of your themes today? Raise your hand if that's your theme. Nancy, would you sing that for us, please?
When I first found Jesus, my soul was so on fire to share His love with others. This was my deep desire. When I learned He died for me to save me from my sins, my life I'd give to serve Him. This was my pledge to Him. If you can use me, Lord, I'm yours today, now and forever, in whatever way. If there's a work that you would have me do, I'm ready, Jesus, to be used of you. I had my own ideas of how He could use me. He wouldn't stop at small things, a big name I would be. But I was disappointed, things didn't go my way, and I forgot the promise I made to Him that day. If you can use me, Lord, have me do. I'm ready, Jesus, to be used of you. My jealousy, impatience, my selfishness and pride have marred, my Lord, the friendship between you and I. Your purpose and plan for me I didn't understand. Oh, please forgive me, Jesus, and take me as I am. Come, Lord, and use me now. I'm yours today, now and forever, in whatever way. If there's a work that you would have me do, I'm ready, Jesus, to be used of you. I'm ready, Jesus, to be used of you.
Let's bow our heads. Father, what a joy it is to be about your service. We thank you for this church body, for our pastor, for the visitors here today. We thank you for your patience with us. Help us to work until you come to finish your projects here and around the world. In Christ's name, amen.